Hey guys, Dave and Len here. Welcome to Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about our favorite infantry weapons of World War II. I would have to start out with the BAR. It was an interesting weapon. I think it took a 30-06 round, and they generally issued those with armor-piercing rounds, so if someone was standing behind like a bunch of bricks or sandbags, there was a high degree of, I wouldn't say a high degree of likelihood, but it was likely that the BAR round would go through the single row of sandbags and hit the person behind it. So it only took a 20-round magazine, but for what it was used for, I think it was an effective weapon.
Yeah, actually, there's a debate about because you got to compare the BAR with the Bren.
Yeah, the Bren machine gun's actually better than the BAR, from what I've heard.
And I think the Germans had this M60 or...
no, M60 is American.
I forget their weapon. That's supposed to be very good, but it had a fast rate of fire. Like, for instance, it had a fast rate of fire, which is normally good, but it also eats up ammunition. So if you were in a German squad, in about a minute or two...
What was the name of that German machine gun? The one that the M60 is loosely based off of.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I can't remember the name of it.
But that was the problem with it. Had a lot of good qualities, but you ate up the ammunition real fast.
Well, those things, they used it like a long-range shotgun. I mean, they'd fire at something like 500 yards away, and one pull of the trigger, about 50 rounds would come out, so it'd be like a shotgun blast going out.
Yeah. Because one of the problems also when the German light machine gun was out of ammunition or knocked off, well, that was it. Because the Germans... idea of a squad was one machine gunner and everybody else carries the ammunition.
Yeah, and basically protects the machine gun. Yeah.
Now for rifles, the best one has to be the M1. This has got to be the favorite. Semi-automatic, you can fire and move at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Those are heavy rifles, but it was effective in that war.
Yeah. And, well, actually, the British had a bolt-action rifle that was...
Yeah, they could... a trained British soldier could fire that bolt-action rifle as fast as you could fire an M1 Garand.
Yeah, because it had a short bolt pull, and there was a way you could actually fire that one-handed, which was good in case you get wounded.
Yeah.
So it was the best bolt-action combat rifle. Now, a lot of guys in the early part of the war would have preferred a Springfield rifle over a M1, but you know.
Well, the Marines used the Springfield quite a bit in the Pacific.
Yeah, because they used it all the way through the end of the Guadalcanal campaign, because that's all they had. And afterwards, they had to be retrained on the M1. But, you know, these guys, they liked the Springfield rifle. So. Also, submachine guns. There's a debate over which ones are good, too.
Well, I think of the American ones, everyone liked the Tommy gun, you know, because of the gangster reputation and stuff. But I think actually the grease gun actually was a more effective submachine gun than the Tommy gun. Yeah,
there's a story about some guy was saying that, some scout was saying that they loved the Thompson, but the problem was it was fragile. If you sneeze too hard, it would jam. But with
the Tommy gun, really? Oh, I thought those things were reliable. They weren't.
Yeah. He said, yeah, with the M3, well, when they got the M3, the armor was shown. I'll show you how good this thing's out. He took it, threw it in a puddle of water, jumped on it a few times, picked it up and shot a whole clip. And everybody's going, woo, gotta have that. And one thing also, you were saying a lot of scouts like the M3. Not only was it lighter, but it was shorter. It actually had a slower rate of fire, which was good. Because they were saying...
Yeah, easier to control now.
Yeah, easier to control. And also, he said that some guys would, for the fun of it, would shoot it one-handed, like a pistol. And one guy did something like... they measured out 25 yards from the target. He took a grease gun, shot it one-handed at the bullet, at the red bullseye, and got every round in the bullseye.
That's good. What was that German submachine gun, the one that took the Luger round? I can't remember the name of it.
The MP40 or
yeah, something like so I can't remember the exact name of it. It was a submachine gun, though. Yeah, wow. I used to know the names of all these things. Back in the days when I used to play Flames of War, but it's been a while.
You had to know your weaponry in that war, in that system.
All right, my next one here would be the Panzerfaust. I mean, it was an anti-tank weapon with a very short range, but any idiot could use it, and it cost almost nothing to manufacture, so they issued those in extremely large numbers on the East Front. And, I mean, they were effective at taking out tanks, but you had to get really close to the enemy tank. The penetration power on that was actually greater than a Panzerschreck or a bazooka, because it was a wider heat round. Not that wide, it was more like that. But, yeah, it was effective if you could get close enough to hit the tank with it.
I think they figured out that the Panzerfaust only eliminate 2% of the enemy tanks. However, if it was the tank that was in front of you, you liked the Panzerfaust.
Yeah.
And you most likely had one available than a Panzerschreck.
It cost nothing to manufacture, so, I mean, they could just keep issuing those things left and right. So, I mean, basically those infantry anti-tank weapons, they're secondary job is to take out armored vehicles and tanks and stuff. Their main job is to increase the morale of the infantry, because they have a weapon to use against these monstrous tanks, so it keeps the infantry brave.
Yeah, because one thing with bazookas, the United States developed a tank destroyer branch, because their observers noted in the 39 and 40 campaigns there were instances where infantry would run from tanks. Both sides did this. So they needed like an infantry anti-tank weapons, because and of course at first they thought they'd have to get a lot of anti-tank guns and mobile tank destroyers, but then somebody developed a rocket launcher. There's a story about when they did it on the testing ground. First of all, they improvised the aiming sight. They found a piece of wire on it, and then they said, "Wait a minute, there's a general over there." Here, they give him instructions, and within minutes he's firing the thing off. So they're saying, "Wow, if a general can, with a few minutes instructions, can use this, your average infantryman will have no problems."
Yeah, one other anti-tank weapon worth mentioning is the British Piat. I believe that one didn't have an explosive that fired it. It had an actual spring, kind of like a small garage door spring or something, and that would be compressed, and it would push the projectile out. I think that was just really short range, but it worked.
Well, it had an advantage. First of all, you didn't have the blast.
Yeah, that's true. So you could fire it from out of a room, out of a building, right out a window, without harming yourself.
And also, a lot of times they couldn't. With a bazooka, you gave your position away. With this one, they don't see a blast, so they don't know where it's coming from.
At night, it would be completely invisible then when you fired it.
Yeah. There's a story about one guy that knocked out 13 vehicles. And what it was is the guy was blinded, so his loader would instruct him where to point it.
Oh, wow.
And, well, actually, he knocked off, they claimed 13 tanks, but they really found out it was something like 9 tanks, a couple assault guns, and a bazooka or half-track or 2. But he said the guy was blind, so we'll give him a break on that. This was at the Arnhem campaign.
Gotcha.
So.
All right, what else can we think of here? Well, how about pistols? I mean, the U.S., like the Colt 45, the only problem with the Colt 45 is when you carried it in a holster, you need to make sure there wasn't a round in a chamber, because they had a lot of guys who accidentally shot themselves in the foot with that, because for whatever reason, you could accidentally fire it when drawing it from the holster if there was a bullet in the chamber.
Well, everybody likes Lugers because they look so neat.
Well, the U.S. troops, when they kill Germans and find Lugers, fight over who got the Luger, because I mean that was something that was legal to have back home, so you could mail that back to your parents. So when you got back from the war, you had your own Luger.
Yeah, because one thing is, right before the war started, they replaced the pistols with the P-38 model, and the thing,
the 38 that 38 caliber revolver.
well, no, it was like a semi-automatic. But the thing was, if
I'm
you
not
had,
familiar with that one.
yeah, if you had your own Luger, you could keep it. And since a lot of officers already had one issued,
Oh, you're talking about the Germans now.
Germans,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
yeah, they had a 38 and a P-38 pistol. And, you know, the new guys got that, but the old guy, that's why it was valuable, because it always had this thing like, if you got a Luger, they figured the badass-ass Germans had Lugers.
Mm.
So even though they were like fragile, easy to jam, you couldn't shoot them too fast and they were jam. But I think they had a faster muzzle velocity, so you probably hit the target more often, even though it didn't have the kick that a 45 had.
Mm.
And the British liked their Wembley revolver, so the United States had revolvers too.
Yeah, they did. I think they were 38s.
Yeah. They gave it to the MPs in the United States.
I think pilots might have got them too.
Yeah, because the Army Air Corps was issued 45s, but they were later given 38s because, you know, they wanted to give the 45s to, like, combat infantry, you know.
Well, the 38s actually, for most people, is more accurate. It's a hell of a lot easier to shoot than a 45. I've shot a 45 before. It's got a good kick to it, and I could shoot a 38 revolver much more accurately than a 45 caliber pistol or 45 caliber automatic, like a Colt 45.
Yeah, because with the Air Corps, they wanted one of the problems with the 45 was that it took more time to learn. And yeah, just the Air Corps, they fly and fight. They want to have a pistol that says, okay, guys, this is what you do. You shoot them, you let them shoot out a few rounds. Okay, that part of the training is over. Mm-hmm. Moving on to whatever's next. And pistols, machine guns. Hard to tell, those old dirty.
Yeah, the U.S. had that old 30 caliber. I think it was a Browning machine gun, the one which had those crazy belts that were made out of canvas. And the problem with those belts is, let's say you had a belt with, I don't know if they came in 50 or 100 rounds. Let's say it's 100 rounds. Let's say you fired off 30 rounds and you couldn't break off the belt. You know what I mean? Like if you got a jam or something. Whereas like on an M60 or something, if you get like a runaway gun, you can just take the belt and snap it back like that and the thing breaks off and you can stop the runaway gun. You couldn't do that with a runaway Browning.
Mm. And also, you haven't mentioned any Soviet equipment.
Well, yeah. I mean, none of their infantry equipment was bad. It's just none of it was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, all of it was very reliable and useful. Just none of it was fantastic.
I wish that submachine gun with the round drum and everything.
Oh, that was cool. Actually, I know what you're talking about. That submachine gun they had, because what they did is they took burnt out barrels for some of their bolt action rifles. Cut the barrel in half and put it in the submachine gun. And then they had a pistol round for the submachine gun, which was the same width as the rifle round took. So that's kind of a cool weapon. It was like the barrels were from old rifles or.
Yeah, because they had like whole companies just equipped with it.
Yeah, just submachine guns. But I mean, in like close quarter or urban combat, I mean, those would have been units would have been extremely effective.
Yeah. Okay. Hand grenades.
Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I'm sure they were all effective back then. I couldn't tell you if the American ones were better than the German ones or the German ones were better than the American ones. Those are the old pineapple grenades, not like the new grenades that they have. There's actually a coiled wire in it, and the coiled wire, like every quarter inch, has a nick in it. So when it blows up, this wire blows up into tiny little pieces and go out and do shrapnel damage. Whereas the World War II grenades, since our pineapple hit a much bigger projectile that would fly out, but there'd be less of them. So with the modern ones, you'll hit more people with it, but with the German or the American and World War II ones, you'll hit less, but the ones you hit, you'll do much more damage to.
Yeah, because the German, well, I always like the potato masher ones because they just look so neat.
Yeah, I imagine it was easier to throw with the handle and stuff.
Yeah,
it's almost like, yeah.
Easier, and I think it go like 10 meters further. But I think at a certain point the Germans stopped producing the handled ones and just put the regular ones because the soldiers wanted. They were tired of carrying the potato masher ones because you know you stick about 2 or 3 in your belt at the most, but with they take the handle off, you can carry like 6, 8 of them in your pockets. So they preferred that. So.
Cool. Got anything else? I'm out of ideas.
Okay, rifle grenade. Well, I don't know. Well, back to grenades. The American pineapple one was, I think, one of the best. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Which had the when it broke apart, it was in bigger projectiles than the modern grenades.
And the Mills bombs. They weren't grenades for the British. They were bombs.
Mills bomb. I've heard of them. I don't know what they are though.
It's their version of the regular hand grenade. I don't know if it's better than the American one or what. So. Mortars. We haven't talked about mortars.
Yeah. I'm not that well schooled in mortars. All I know about mortars is the modern US 81 millimeter mortar. The ammunition on it can be used in the Russian 82 millimeter mortar, but not the other way around. Since the Russian 82 millimeter mortar takes a slightly larger round, you can't use those rounds in the modern US 81 millimeter mortars. That's about all I know about mortar.
And that's something very important to know when in your survivalist scenarios when the society collapses and you find a Russian 82 millimeter mortar just happen to be hanging around. It was like a little 60 millimeter mortar.
Yeah, that's what the U.S. used, a smaller one, whereas in modern day they use an 81. I think back then, you're right, it was a 60 millimeter.
They had that at company level, and it looks like a little toy. But the advantage of mortars was if the other guy was attacking and you're out in the open, because they were deadly.
Well, those were good because people would go hide behind sandbags and stuff. You could drop the mortar behind the sandbag and hit the guy, whereas if you're firing rifle fire, the sandbags would protect them.
Yes. And, of course, there's that Marine gunnery sergeant who dropped a mortar round down a smokestack of Japanese destroyer. Of course, it's a Marine tale, so you know it must be true.
Oh, of course. I was reading in World War II, more troops were on all sides were killed or wounded by mortars than any other weapon. That's what I read.
Yeah, that's true. Cause like I said, if you're attacking, mortars are very deadly at defensive fire. And of course, if they had an open foxhole and you had a little good aim, they could drop one down it. Because actually, there was like the light mortars were like 60 millimeters. The medium mortars were the 81 millimeters. Americans did use them in World War II. And then there's 120 millimeters.
Yeah, that's more of a battalion level mortar. In modern era, well, I don't know about still, but when I was in, they mounted those in M113 half tracks. Yeah,
because in World War II, they were assigned to corps, like a battalion of those. And they found them very useful, actually, when they were, because you could bring down the fire real fast, faster than artillery. And the problem was they were very heavy. At first, they moved them in carts. And, the guys were pushing them like they're horses, pulling them like they're horses. And somebody said, guys, we're the U.S. Army. Pulls up a Jeep. Attach it to the Jeep. Then later, whoa, let's put it on a truck. Even better, let's shoot it from a truck. And they did, and now any 120 millimeter mortars are mounted on vehicles.
Yeah. I think before I said it was mounted on half track, not a half track, I meant an M113 armored vehicle.
Yes.
It wasn't a half track, it was just regular tracked.
Yeah, that's
an APC basically.
Now, yeah. And of course the half track I liked. Yeah, I remember, I don't know why, I had model kits of half tracks, and it's one of the few things, when you saw a half track, you knew you were in a World War II movie.
Well, I was reading that American half track, the tracks on it actually were made out of rubber, and I guess I don't know. That just seemed to work out better than the regular metal tracks that they would put on half tracks. So I was reading the Israelis got a hold of a bunch of American half tracks after World War II, and they really liked the vehicle.
Yeah. I'm trying to, whether it's rubber on the bottom and they kept it all the time, because I think with tanks, you have a metal thread.
Yeah, the metal tread, and then there's a rubber on it too.
And the rubber one is great for if you're going on the roads.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, that's all I got. You got anything?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll have a new topic for you next week. Have a good one.
All right.